Hello everyone and welcome back to the YellowDog 3D Tips blog. Today I'm going to be showing you how we can use animation layers inside of Maya. So I'm just going to start off with a really simple scene and I'm just going to set some keyframes on it. And obviously we've just created this really simple animation. But the problem with this is that it's a really destructive way of animating. We can't just disable this animation without deleting all the keyframes, so I'm going to show you a better way of doing it. So with the cube selected, I'm going to go down to the animation layers options, and I'm going to go to create layer from selected under the layers menu, and you can see all the keyframeable attributes of this cube are now green, which tells us that all the animation now is going to happen on a separate layer. So I'm just going to give this layer a meaningful name by double clicking on it. So this is going to be the rotate layer where we're going to add some rotation animation on it. So on the first frame I've just set a key and I'm just going to go to frame 20 and rotate this cube a little bit. And I'm just going to copy frame 1, I'm going to copy that and paste it onto frame 40. And as you can see we've got a little bit of animation now if I play this back. And if I wanted this to loop forever, I could go into the graph editor, select those attributes, hit F on these, so it goes full screen, and I'm going to go to curves, post infinity, and cycle that. So now we've just got a looping animation of this cube's rotation. However, the difference now is that we can mute this layer by clicking the little mute icon, and now it's just going to reveal the animation below it, which is no animation. So it's a really nice non-destructive way of animating. You can easily turn your animation on and off. So if you wanted to add any objects to this new layer, we can select our new object, which is a new cube I just created, and we can right click the layer and click add selected objects, and now this cube is part of the same animation layer. So we go into the graph editor and see what's happening here. So now you can see if we select one of these objects in the graph editor, you can access these animation curves under their respective animation layer, so you can tweak them that way. So it's just a really nice way of working. It's really non-destructive, and you can easily disable and re-enable the animation as you please. So there you go, I've just got two objects under this animation layer, and I can turn it off and get back to the original layout. So I'm going to show you something else and how we can layer up animations. So I'm just going to delete these layers. In fact, I'm going to delete the objects as well and just create a sphere. So now with the sphere selected, I'm going to go to layers and create layer from selected. So now I'm just going to select this new layer that we've just created and set a few keyframes on this sphere. So I'm just going to have it moving up and down and have it sort of a looped bouncing animation. So I'm just pasting the frame 1 back up frame 20. I'm going to go into the animation editor, the graph editor, and I'm going to loop this out just as we did a second ago. So now we've just got this infinity looping sort of really crude bouncing animation. So now I'm just going to create a new layer with the sphere selected. So this sphere is now on 2 animation layers, and on the layer above I'm going to set a keyframe at frame 1. I'm going to go to frame 10 and set an animation and just move it across in the x-axis, and then I'm just going to paste the first keyframe back again onto frame 20. So now we've got it moving left and right and up and down, and both of these layers are now influencing the sphere's animation. So I'm just going to go to the graph editor, I'm going to go into the new layer that I've just created, and I'm going to cycle that one out as well. So we've got this left and right animation, and I can actually make this layer mode an override mode so that only this layer is affecting the animation of the sphere. But if I wanted to blend both of these together, I could go to the layer mode of it and go to additive, which means it's making a sort of cumulative animation of both the layers. It's combining them both together, and we can mute them and turn them off to see what each layer is doing really easily. So here is a new scene, and it's basically set up in the same way but with just some better animation. So we've got all these animation layers, so if I just put this bounce layer on, we'll see we've got just a nicer animation of this sphere bouncing up and down, and I've got this squash and stretch layer above it. So as you can see, by unmuting these animation layers, I can start layering up the animation and basically just making a much more interesting animation without having to set loads of keyframes on each layer. So it's really simple and easy to understand, I think, and it makes it really easy to go in and change your animation. Like you can go into the graph editor and you can see all of your animation layers here, and tweak the curves here if you wanted to change any parts of the animation. It's just super easy, and it's a really good system to use, especially if you're working on rigged characters. So I'll show you that in the next scene. But So another great feature of using these animation layers is that you actually get a weight slider for each of the layers. So if you wanted to make one layer have slightly less influence, you can slide the weight slider down. So I've done that on the bounce layer, and as you can see, you can interactively control how much effect this layer is having. So it's a really easy way to just change the dynamics of your animation. So next to the weight slider, you'll see that there's a little K, and if we go ahead and click that, you'll see that it's going to set a keyframe. So this is going to allow us to keyframe the weight of each animation layer. So I've just had this bounce layer sort of ramp up from nothing. So at frame 1 the weight was 0 and it keyframes up to around 0.5, and you can see you can easily slide this weight slider and basically procedurally change your animation on the fly. So here is a nice little rig of my YellowDog. So a really interesting way of using these animation layers is creating looping effects on rigged characters. So here you can see on the top layer I've got a blink cycle. So when I unmute this layer, it's going to add a blink cycle no matter what other animation is on the dog. It's just going to add this looping blink cycle. And I've added ones for other things as well. So I've got a breathing cycle, and these are all additives. So no matter how I animate this dog, I can add these on top of the animation, and they really do add a nice effect. Like they're going to work on top of any keyframes you add. So I'll just turn off the smooth mesh preview so it sort of updates in the viewport a little bit faster. But you can do this for things like walk cycles as well. So I've got a walk cycle on one layer, and sorry about how slow the rig is, but you get the idea. And if I wanted to at any point, I can make the layer mode an override mode, so it only shows keyframes on that layer. But I'm just going to keep it as additive just for now. So now all three of these layers are working in conjunction with each other. So I've got a breathe cycle, a blink cycle, and a walk cycle all working in conjunction with each other. And I feel like it just adds a really nice dynamic effect to the animation and gives it a lot of depth. So once again, thank you for watching. This has been the YellowDog 3D Tips blog. Stay tuned for more 3D tips. Cheers.